Today's topic, we are going to be talking about riders' rights and crash response. Welcome. I am Mel, your host for Tuesdays with Mitch, and we are here with the expert himself, Mr. Mitch Broner, your personal injury lawyer with over 30 years of experience, here to answer your questions or give you insights about important topics that might be useful in the personal injury world. How are you doing, Mitch?
Doing great, doing great. Happy to be here. Happy to be sharing some information. Hopefully, people will find it informative and entertaining.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So I know we talked about it last week. We're gonna start focusing on like motorcycles and stuff. But now, before we go on to the main questions, just so that we let our viewers know that you and I actually ride. I actually ride a Ducati Scrambler. And I've only been riding since 2017. But what about yourself, Mitch? What do you ride, and how long have you been riding?
So I currently ride a road glide, Harley Davidson road glide, which to the riders they know it's one of those big sleds with the fairings and the baggers. Anyway, it's my third road glide,
Oh wow.
and I've owned. Uh, I had a 94 Heritage Softail that I put 120,000 miles on. I had a Sportster. I started out on a Yamaha DOHC back in the early 80s. And before that, I was riding mini bikes and dirt bikes.
Oh wow.
And I had a panhead that really leaked oil a lot more than it was on the road. I've been riding Harleys, I guess, for all of my adult life. I've always had at least one or two, and at times three Harleys in my garage
Oh wow.
for the last, I'd say, 40 years.
Oh
So I'm an experienced rider.
yeah, I got a lot to learn from you in many ways. So, with all that experience, Mitch, do you feel that your experience as a rider gives you an edge in the courtroom, and how?
Well, I think my experience in the courtroom gives me an edge in the courtroom. I've tried a lot of cases. I'm known, and I've always been known as a guy who's a trial lawyer. I was elected president of the New York State Academy of Trial Lawyers, which is the largest state trial bar in the country. I've lectured across the country to trial bar associations, and I've maintained my reputation as an active trial lawyer and an active lecturer to attorney groups. I'm also, and that's.
See, guys, he's a rider. If that doesn't hurt,
That's my cell phone.
there's further proof.
Anyway, I've also lectured to motorcycle rights organization, motorcycle clubs on a regular basis, and rode with motorcycle clubs, national clubs and local clubs, and I've been on USA runs and world runs with notable clubs, and I've maintained my reputation as an attorney that people could rely upon in the riding community, and in the riding community, they say a bad word goes around the world twice before a good word could get their boots on, and I've kept my good name for over 30 years as an attorney that the riders can rely upon, and I enjoy that reputation. But the advantage I have in the courtroom is having tried a lot of cases, and I've handled every type of motorcycle accident case you can imagine. Motorcycle versus left-turning car is, of course, the most common. Motorcycle against a car that pulls out from a stop sign or from a parking lot without observing the right of the way of the motorcyclist that's already on the roadway. So motorcycle versus car, but I've done motorcycle versus bus, motorcycle versus truck, motorcycle versus motorcycle, motorcycle with roadway defects encountered causing a collision, improper signage, exploding gas tanks, failure to retract kickstands, any type of motorcycle accident. I've probably tried it and tried it successfully. And that's given me an advantage. I have had, in addition to being an experienced rider, I've had numerous accident reconstructionists on the stand that have talked about the physics involved in a motorcycle collision. And in order to put this expert on the stand, I had to understand the physics myself. So, for example, throw me out any miles per hour.
88 miles per hour.
88, that's an interesting one. Okay, 88 miles per hour is traveling at approximately 132 feet per second.
Oh, wow.
And,
Slide
and,
time.
and I could do these calculations in my head just because I've had the reconstructionists on the stand so many times. You could give me any other time. Give me another one at me.
Making a dragging a knee going left at 35 miles per hour.
35 miles per hour is approximately 48 feet per second.
Who needs a calculator, folks? They got Mitch.
Well, anyway, I also know that the coefficient of friction of a typical motorcycle sliding on the side is the same coefficient of friction as a motorcycle with two wheels locked. And I've had to encounter evolving technology because now a lot of the bigger bikes have linked braking where the front and the rear will computer calculate the right amount of pressure so that the wheels don't lock up with anti-lock brakes. And so you could put too much pressure on the rear and the front's going to engage, or vice versa. But those are only typically in the bigger bikes, and you got to pay for that. Not everybody does. And I've rode the older bikes as well.
Yeah.
And I know about braking systems and stopping distances and how the physics can change who's at fault for a collision. And I use that to the rider's advantage.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, with your experience, and I think you had mentioned before that you've actually been in a crash yourself.
I broke my wrist, my ankle, and 7 bones in my back in 1992 when a cab ran a red light. I was riding in Manhattan. I was going through, at that time it was called the Pan Am building. Now it's the MetLife building.
Oh, yeah.
And it's an S-turn and coming out onto Park Avenue, and a cab crashing into me. And I spent a lot of time in the hospital. And then it took me about 1.5 years, but I started riding again.
Wow.
Just because, at first my wrist was frozen. I couldn't even work a throttle.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of lawyers that say they know how to handle motorcycle accident cases, but they don't know that the brake is on your right foot and also your right hand, and the clutch is on the left hand, and the horn is on your thumb, and the shifter's on your left foot, and that might change. See, older bikes, you don't see them on the road so much, but I've
seen that before.
Handle and the shifter and different bikes different. Like nowadays, there's not even a throttle cable. It's all computer related. It's and you can't even work on the bikes yourself because you need the computer diagnostics. But I've done it all. I tried cases back when I had to explain to juries why my client had tattoos. Now everybody's got them.
Yeah.
But that's what it was like. It was harder. And I've tried cases with clients that have had criminal backgrounds and had to present them. And that you wouldn't think that has anything to do with how a collision occurs, but they're entitled to bring that up. And when you hear your client has major felonies, it can prejudice a jury, but I've had to deal with that and learn to overcome that. And I even lectured to attorney groups on presenting the client with the unconventional lifestyle. A lot of times, attorneys will say they'll take a reduced offer because they know everybody doesn't like motorcyclists.
Yeah.
And I don't do that. I learned to try these cases. I learned to win these cases so that I became a go-to person teaching other attorneys on how to win these cases and how to win the hard cases because I did it. And you learn what works and what doesn't. And I'm still doing it.
Yeah.
And I enjoy it.
Yeah. So like with that, like what would be the first thing a rider should do right after a collision?
Okay. The first thing is you got to take care of your health. So many times I talk to people and they're like, well, I didn't call an ambulance because I wanted to secure my bike. And I'll tell you a warning story. had a client. He was in upstate New York in Binghamton, had a collision. He called up his wife, and he said to his wife, I'm not going to be making it home. I got into an accident. I think I'm okay. I might have broken my leg. Don't be concerned. It turned out he had a brain bleed and he died. Died in the hospital. Never spoke to his wife again. Now, with brain injuries, they're not always fatal. But there's a known phenomenon called neuroplasticity, where you can have significant recovery if you're given the right and appropriate attention. And sometimes you bang your head, you don't even realize it till you look at the helmet because your adrenaline's pumping.
Yeah.
Or you might think you rang your bell, but you think you're okay. Like when I was a kid, I played ice hockey. There was no such thing as concussion protocols, and unfortunately, that's the way it was. But there's better knowledge out there. So the first thing is, don't worry about the medical bills. A good lawyer can help you with the medical bills. We can take care of that. You lose time from work, that's unfortunate. But your health's more important. It's going to have a longer effect on your life down the road than a couple of missed paychecks. You got to get the right medical attention. So the first thing is, get yourself checked out. Call an ambulance. You could always get another bike. Your health might not recover. You love that bike. Oh, you don't know, it's a show bike. I put all the parts. No, it doesn't matter. Yeah. You could always get another bike. You can't get a new head. This is the only one you got. You got to get yourself looked at. And you got to give the doctors all of your complaints, not just what you think hurts most. You have to have them check you out. So that's the first thing, is your health's the most important. More important than any money I can get somebody is their health. That's number one. Yeah. Number two, of course, you'll make my job easier if I know immediately what evidence is out there. If you have the wherewithal to take some photos of the accident scene, that could be helpful. We can go and investigate an accident, and typically a lot of evidence disappears within hours, some disappears after days, and some will be around for a week. But there's a time factor. For example, nowadays there's more and more surveillance. Everywhere there's cameras. Typically those security videos are taped over after a 72-hour loop, sometimes after 48 hours. That might show how a collision occurred. And otherwise, it might be your word against theirs for what color the light was or how fast somebody was going. And we can immediately scour the area and look for evidence that might prove the rider is entitled to compensation.
Right. Wow, so that's amazing, and you're right. Like, there are a lot of cameras. I know when I was working in the motorcycle dealership, almost every other rider had some sort of camera either attached to their helmet or attached to their bike. So that's a really, really good point. So let's get to the next question here. Like, from a legal standpoint, what are the biggest mistakes riders make immediately after an accident?
Well, first of all, they talk to the insurance carriers without being prepared by an attorney. These insurance carriers, they're not your good neighbor. You're not in their good hands. They're big businesses. They're not some friendly lizard. They're big businesses. They make money for their shareholders by collecting as much as possible in premiums and paying out as little as possible in claims. Additionally, by law, they are required to set aside money to pay out on known claims. That's called their reserves. But they invest their reserves, which means they're required by law to set aside money to settle claims. But while that money's sitting there, they can invest it and make money on their investments. Simple interest means the longer it sits there, the more likely that investment is going to grow. So they have a built-in financial incentive to pay out as little as possible, as slow as possible.
Wow.
That's their business. They're in the business of making money for their shareholders, not making people happy. It's not a charity.
Yeah.
They're businesses. A lawyer, like myself, my expertise is in separating insurance carriers from their money on behalf of my clients. And the more money I get paid, the more my client gets paid. The more my client gets paid, the less money the insurance carrier has. The Insurance Institute's own studies show that claimants with an attorney are more likely to get over 3 times as much money for their claims as they would ever get without an attorney. When you speak to an insurance carrier to report your claim, they sound perhaps concerned, perhaps friendly.
Yeah.
And they ask to take a recorded statement. When they do, you got to say, sure, I'll give you a recorded statement after you clear it with my attorney. And I'll make sure that no client of mine is going to give a statement that they don't have to give, that's not to their benefit. And if they are going to give that statement, they're going to be prepared beforehand. Just like that's their right. And they don't pay for that right. If we don't win the case, there are no fees. So I have an incentive to win the case. The carrier has an incentive to win the case too. But if the carrier wins the case, the motorcyclist doesn't get paid.
Yeah.
Not for their injuries, not for their pain and suffering. So the most important thing is get an attorney right away. It can only help.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you have no idea how many people that I've met when I was working in the motorcycle industry who just didn't know who to call, or they just didn't know the right person to call. They would just find random people online. So it's amazing that there's someone like you out there to really honestly help riders, because you are a rider yourself. So that's such a great
I
thing.
always like to say, I don't wish an accident on anybody.
Yeah.
I don't wish injuries on anybody, because that would be bad karma, and I wouldn't be able to think of myself as a decent human being if I wished ill will on people. I don't wish injuries on anybody. But if they unfortunately sustain injuries, I hope they call me, because at least they'll have somebody knowledgeable and compassionate ready to work for them. And that's what I bring to each one of my clients. My employees in my office, my team. I've got lawyers and paralegals working for me, and they're all surprised that I give out my cell phone numbers to my clients. I did it today to. I was talking to a woman whose husband had a motorcycle collision. Some woman crossed 3 lanes of the roadway because they missed their exit apparently or something, caused a collision, and the motorcycle went down. And I was talking to the wife, and I said, I got a lot of people working for you. She says, I know, I saw your website. I said, but you've got my cell phone. I said, this is my cell phone. You can call me anytime, weekends, nights. And I do that because I care about my clients.
Yeah, it's very obvious. You know what? Earlier I'd mentioned something about the cameras, but that actually brings up the next question. Like, how can a GoPro / dash camera, I mean, it's not really dash camera, motorcyclist footage help or hurt a case?
So a lot of times, riders don't realize what a video looks like. So we have the ability to do a focus group on videos. We can actually present a video to people beforehand. And if it's helpful, well, we're going to make that a big part of the case.
Yeah.
If it's not helpful, We're not going to make it a big part of the case. And we're going to figure out how to explain it.
Okay.
Maybe we'll hire an engineer, an accident reconstructionist, who could say, based on these landmarks, this was the speed of the motorcycle. So the motorcycle might look like it's going faster, but it was actually only doing 25 miles per hour. Small objects can appear to be going faster. For example, a bird might look like it's flying fast, and a plane might look like it's going slow. But the plane's going over 550 miles an hour, but it looks like it's slowly going across the sky because it's bigger. Or a train. People get hit by trains because they don't recognize it's so big they don't recognize the speed. But a smaller object can look like it's going much faster. And a motorcycle's smaller. And then there's the drivers say, oh, he must have been going fast because he came out of nowhere. No, he came out of nowhere because you weren't observing the roadway.
Yep.
And if he was, if it came out of nowhere, then you didn't have the time to observe the speed because you didn't see it.
Yeah.
Like I'm looking at you now, I can't tell how fast the vehicles are on the street below my window.
Yeah.
I'm not looking at them. That's the average driver.
Yeah. Yeah. They always say, "What you ride like you're invisible."
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
That's right,
That's
because
what-
we are.
we are,
They don't
yeah.
see us. They don't see us.
Yeah, definitely, especially like here in like in a busy city like New York. Now, speaking of New York, takes me to the next question, Mitch. In New York, can not wearing a helmet or gear reduce the compensations you receive?
Yes, yes. For example, in New York, we have a helmet law where you're required to wear a helmet. Now, if you're involved in a collision without a helmet, that can be held against you.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you. And it has to be DOT approved helmet, right? You can't just throw on any helmet. Is that correct?
I believe that the section of the Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Code is 5291, but I didn't look it up. But
No, that's it. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, if I remember correctly. Yeah, because I used to sell helmets, so I had pay attention to those little things.
So anyway, you're supposed to have a qualified helmet, and
Okay.
it's good to have one that's going to work.
Yeah.
But at the same rate, not every helmet does. I've handled helmet cases because the helmet wasn't working the way it was supposed to work or designed to work.
Yeah.
And helmet cases are difficult cases. But even if you're wearing a non-DOT helmet, that probably isn't going to become a big part of the case if the police officer just wrote down he was wearing a helmet.
Yeah.
If the other side says they want to see the helmet and they start to make a big deal that it wasn't DOT approved, I haven't seen that.
Okay.
And like I said, I've done more of these cases than anybody.
Yeah.
So,
Definitely.
yeah, you should wear a DOT helmet for your own safety, but nobody's really checking after a collision, typically.
Yeah.
Typically. Unless it doesn't work the way it was supposed to. You bought an expensive helmet and it didn't work right. Well, that could be something. In other states like Connecticut, there's no helmet law.
Right.
But then again, even in New York, you could not be wearing a helmet, but you can make the argument that these injuries wouldn't have changed if you were wearing a helmet.
Ah.
So it depends on the injury sustained.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's an important variable.
Yeah. Wow. I never knew about that. Well, let's go on to the next question, Mitch, and thank you so much so far for all this great information. But what advice do you give riders on documenting their crash scene to protect their rights?
Take as many photos as you can. It doesn't cost anything to develop film anymore. Nobody does that. They've got it on their phone.
Yeah.
So take as many photos from as many possible angles as you can.
Okay.
And you don't have to advertise it. Go around like your CSI.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because then it looks like he was more concerned about making money on his case than his injuries, and the whole thing seems phony. But I would say, take your phone out, and I'm just calling up my wife, and
Yeah.
you know,
Okay.
I think that's probably a better. You don't have to start running around, but because your health's more important. Moving around might
Yeah.
not be the best thing for you if you've got some broken bones or something you don't realize.
Yeah.
There, go around, take some photos. At least we can locate where the vehicles were and
Yeah.
do some basic physics. Then, of course, when the police arrive, if you call an ambulance, the police are going to arrive. Now, there's some motorcycle clubs that think, oh, I'm not allowed to talk to the police under any circumstances. That even after a collision, they're like, no, I can't call the police because that's
Yeah.
the rules. But I think it's always permissible to say what the driver of the other vehicle did wrong.
Okay.
You don't need to tell them what you did wrong. You never have to tell a police officer, I only had 3 beers. You never have to tell on yourself.
Got it. Okay.
But if you say the other vehicle ran across 3 lanes, that could be helpful.
Okay. Wow. Amazing. Well, that's some really great stuff, and a great, hopefully, introduction to what we'll be doing more in the future in terms of focusing on motorcycle cases and just educating motorcyclists out there in general. And so with that, there you have it. Just yet another amazing learning moment with Mitch. In case you do need a lawyer, please do not hesitate, especially if it's a motorcycle case, please do not hesitate to call us here at Proner at 1-800-321-1234. And also don't forget to follow us on all our social media platforms like Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and of course, YouTube. Yeah, don't forget to subscribe to YouTube. We're trying to get the boosted numbers up on there. Yes, and of course, please like and subscribe. And if you're wondering what to look up for the social media platforms, it is as simple as Proner and Proner. And before we log off here for today's session, Mitch, do you have anything else you'd like to say?
No, I want to thank you, Mel. It's great chatting with you, and I hope everybody that catches this enjoyed it and found it informative. Thanks again.
Yes, definitely. I know I learned a lot. I hope you learned a lot. Thank you, Mitch. We'll see you.
Bye-bye.